In this video, we're gonna create this glass effect. Now, this is probably take 5 of these videos, so hopefully it finally works. So before we start, I just wanted to let you know that I am making progress with the paper fold plugin. There's still a few little bugs that need to be solved. That's why it's being a little bit delayed. It's just that it takes a lot of time to figure out workarounds around these weird issues. All right, first thing first, go to the effects tab and add a fusion composition into your timeline on top of the clip that you're gonna be using. Press fusion here and let's open these. Here in fusion, we're gonna add a background node and that's gonna be our base canvas. Now, the next thing is to add a media in. So press Ctrl and spacebar and add a media in. And when you connect these, it's gonna show up in red because it's taking the media source as a timeline, which means that it's basically grabbing itself to be the source of the clip, right? What we need to do here is, instead of timeline, we're gonna use background. That's basically how an adjustment layer works. So anything that you put under this clip or this fusion clip, it's gonna show up here on the fusion composition. And that's how we get the glass effect to actually take whatever is behind it and then act the way that it does. All right, so if you think that we need to just add a mask and add these to the media out, you would be correct, but there's a few things that we need to do. Since we're already here, we can set these up to 0.2 on the corner radius, and then let's disconnect these, and we're gonna bring a background, connect these to the background, and here, this background, we're gonna change the color type to gradient. We're gonna bring this a little bit like that, but first we're gonna change the color to be as close to white as we can. Then we're gonna go to the second white, and we're gonna set these up to 0. That way we have that little transparency coming along. And you can probably already see where we're going with these. You don't have to set it up like this, so feel free to adjust it however you want. Then we're gonna press Ctrl and spacebar again and add a transform node, and we're gonna connect these to the media in. The reason why we have that transform node there and not here after is that if we have this after and we move these, then it's also gonna change the background that we have, so like the actual clip, and the rectangle is gonna be always in the middle. So we wanna move these here behind, make sure that it's coming from the background here. And if we move these around, then we can see the glass already having a little bit of an effect on these. Then on this media, we're gonna press Ctrl and spacebar and add a blur. Here you can choose whichever blur you want, but in this case I use a zoom blur, which is this one, and I like this one the best because it just worked better. Let me set this up in the middle so we can see this better. I like the refraction that it had, and you can play around with this value bar right here to adjust it however you want. Then we're gonna connect this background here or this transform node as a mask into this zoom blur so that we don't go beyond the edges of our glass. The next step is to add a background again, and we're gonna connect these to the zoom blur, and then we're gonna change this one to be white. This background is gonna add as a little bit of a highlight, and on the merge node, we're gonna set the blend to 0.05, so it's really subtle. If I deactivate these, you can see it's affecting everything, so we also have to connect the transform node here to the background. That way, if I deactivate these, you can see the effect that it has, and it's pretty subtle. Now a quick little interruption. If you want to use split screens on your videos, check out the Split Screens Pro toolkit that I have, and there's currently 250 split screens that you can use. So check that out. There's also a demo version that you can try it out. And then when you download the demo, you get like, I think 17 free split screens, and then you get like maybe another 15 more on your email after a few days. So make sure to check that out if that is something that will help you out on your projects. Now let's continue. For the next step, we need to add another background, and this one is gonna be the edges or the little gray glare or shiny edges that's gonna sell the effect a little bit better. So we're gonna connect these, and we're gonna set this to white again, and we're gonna copy this rectangle and paste it right there. We're gonna have a separate one here because we have to do a few changes on these. First, we're gonna take the solid out, and then we're gonna increase the border width holding Ctrl so that it's really thin, and you can play around with the thickness of these obviously. Then to sell the effect a little bit better, what I like to do here is to decrease the width a little bit and also the height like that. That way we have a little bit of a portion of the actual glass that goes over this little glare and I like the way that it sells the effect a little bit better. Another thing you can do here is adjust the soft edge a little bit so that it adds a little bit more of a shiny effect to these. Now the next step is to add a drop shadow. So let's go to Control Spacebar and add a drop shadow. Here on this drop shadow, you will notice that everything behind it also gets dark. So you have to play around with the shadow strength and also the distance and the blur amount until you get to a point that you like how it looks, right? There's no rules set in stone here, so feel free to play around with these always. So on a basic level, we have that glass already ready. And before I forget, I skipped one little step, which is we need to grab this transform node and we're gonna press Ctrl Shift and V so that we can paste an instance. Why? Because if we move this transform node, that border that we just created is gonna stay in the same place. So we're gonna connect this here. That way our border is also gonna move with our glass everywhere we go. Now there's an extra little thing that you can do here on this rectangle if you want. You can press Ctrl C and then Ctrl V, paste a copy of these, and then make this second rectangle a lot smaller. Then we're gonna change the paint mode to subtract, and we're gonna increase the soft edge of these by a lot. And that's gonna add a second layer of transparency, I guess you could call these, to the glass that we have here, so that it's a little bit more clear right and see through right in the center. But this is an optional step, so you can just leave it like that or add it, right? So play around and decide for yourself. All right, now the next step would be to add a text node. So if you want to have a text on top of the glass, we're gonna drag this text node right here, and we're gonna connect these to the other section with a merge node. Now we're also gonna add this transform node. So if you have already copied it, press Ctrl C and then copy and paste an instance by pressing Ctrl Shift V. That way, if our glass moves, our text is also gonna follow along. So let's just write this squirrel right here and modify the color, and then let's just leave the font at Montserrat. Now that way, when you put your text here, you can move the text position, and also you can move the glass and the text will stay in the same place that we have right here. Then the next step will be to add another drop shadow for the text. So we're gonna go here and make sure that we decrease the blur amount like that, and then decrease the distance so that we are casting that little shadow here, and it looks sort of like if there was a sticker on the glass or something like that, right? Feel free to play around with the distance if you want this to go beyond the glass, or just get this closer, and then also play around with the strength and blur values. Now if you want to animate these, you can animate these here on the transform node, for example, by doing a size animation. For example, let's say we want to create a simple size animation here, and then at frame 12, so this to 1. Then you can go to the spline tool to make this bigger, and then selecting everything, we can press F and then T, and then ease this in and out, and we have our glass showing up like that. So yeah, that is pretty much how you can create this glass effect. Then when it opens up, you can see that it's already affecting the squirrel. So if you want to adjust anything later on, you will have to do it in Fusion to adjust the position of, or the size of these, or the rectangle itself. But if you adjust the rectangle, you have to make sure to also adjust this other rectangle, right? Now, what happens if you want to reuse this? You have two options. The first one is you save these into your media folder here in the power bins. So to do that, all you have to do is grab these Fusion composition and put it whatever you want, and then rename this glass overlay. And then on another project, you can simply drag these around and it will be available for you to use. And that will be the first way to use it. And then you can always open it in Fusion and add more things on top of it. Now, the other method, if you want to be able to edit this in the edit page, will require you to know how to create macros. And that's a little bit more complicated. And then you will basically select these and add the position options and also the text options and all of that stuff. I have a few videos on macros, just find them on my channel. And then you will be able to learn how to create macros for yourself if you are interested in that. So that's how you can create this glass effect to use on your projects. If you want the projects files for this one, I think I'm gonna add these to the SUALVI Club members. So if you want to download these, you can become a member of the SUALVI Club and then download there. But if you don't want to become a member, then you can build it. I showed you the steps here, step by step, so that you can build it and then save it and have it with you forever. That's it.